Welcome to GothCast. I am Dr. Sanders.
I'm Cameron.
You're Cameron.
I am.
Just calling you Cameron still. In case you don't know. Well, hey, by this point, I hope that you've listened to the other episodes. Most people listen to them in order. I guess when they come out. I guess later people are just pick and choose. But
Yeah.
Cameron, co-host, drummer for the band Dr. Sanders, co-songwriter, amazing human. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about The Exorcist. The movie.
It's a movie.
It's a movie,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well, I thought you were talking about, like, we're going to get somebody in here to exercise some things.
Well, that was the original plan.
Oh,
And it fell through.
oh man, I got to get out of here.
The priest jumped out a window.
Oh, well, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And you know what it sounds familiar to? The Exorcist. So, we're going to be talking about 3 Exorcist films. Well, there's more. I think there's like 5, but we're doing The Exorcist, The Exorcist II, The Heretic.
Yes.
I think that's what it's called. Heretic.
Yeah, Heretic.
But then Exorcist III. Legion?
Yeah, I
Maybe.
think that's maybe.
Yeah.
It's kind of quoted as different things.
Yeah, we're talking about the first 3 Exorcist films. It's, obviously everybody knows The Exorcist, right? They just know the film. I guess some people know that it's based off a book. I would say majority of people don't actually understand that it's based off a book, which is kind of funny, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was
When did the book come out again?
71.
71. Okay.
Yeah, so
And the movie was 73, right?
that is correct. Yeah. So, and we also, it was so cool because William Blatty, who, he goes on to direct the 3rd film, which is so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the few cases I know of where a writer for a different movie in the series then went on to direct the next one.
Because he was pretty closely involved with the first movie, because he wrote the book, then he helped, or I think he did a majority of the writing for the screen.
Yeah, he helped adapt
screenplay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, the book isn't that necessarily far away from the actual story, but we'll talk about more of that when we get into it. But what you have to know, what we're talking about, is the movies here. It's the creepy. It was a phenomena. Nah.
Yes.
But it's really just one of the most classic horror movies you can think of. And
Absolutely.
as I've said before in some of the other episodes about horror movies that we've done, the 70s is a really weird time for horror movies. I do think that the 80s probably brought us some of the best horror movies.
Yeah, of course.
At least as far as consistency. Like, even though they're terrible technically, but the consistency of horror movies in the 80s, I think, got to be pretty awesome in that, I mean, even with some of the bad sequels that came out of certain horror movie franchise or just the sequelitis, I think you had a lot of really cool things like Reanimator and all. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And the 70s seemed really crazy. Like, there's no real theme to horror movies back then because there wasn't a great formula that people like, that's it. Teenager's Cabin, whatever.
Yeah.
But you have like Suspiria, which is like all the Argento films. And then you have like The Exorcist or Alice, Sweet Alice, or like all these really crazy ones. And The Exorcist to me fits in there really well because it's, I guess nowadays there are horror movies like it, but
before that, I mean, it really paved the way for, I guess, what we think of like modern horror movies now, where it's just like normal family, it could be down your street. This could be happening to your neighbors. It kind of had that cool feeling to it, whereas before it's a lot more like monsters, Dracula, and all that kind of stuff, where it's not really your typical day-to-day experiences, whereas this kind of brought it into the homes of everybody watching it.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about, we're talking about the film, by the way, just in case you didn't, we're into it. But I think that's the best thing about The Exorcist, before we even get into that acting or stuff, is I think the reason it had such an impact is because it is like that. It's very much grounded in reality, and it's not just like, oh, this person's hypnotized to be a zombie, or
Right.
I mean, a lot of movies before this, they're kind of over the top in a lot of those ways, and Hammer and stuff and all that is like just crazy over the top, like monsters. And even though there were like some possession movies and stuff, this was very much grounded in reality, and it's uncomfortable, and it's not just like, ooh, the boogeyman coming out of the closet, or this is infecting the regular family,
Right.
And it's totally possible. And even though it is over the top in like a lot of the effects and stuff, it feels really uncomfortably real.
I know. Yeah. I think part of that's also the way they filmed it.
Yeah.
As well.
And a lot of the dialogue too. It's pretty casual dialogue.
Yeah.
For the most part. It doesn't feel necessarily like horror movie dialogue or
it's not super over the top going for the Oscar type,
exactly
acting.
Yeah, let's just get into it. So for the actors and the production stuff we have of this, I mean, and also it overlaps with the book, obviously, because they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. Basically, you just think of the book as an expanded upon version of the movie. You get a lot more of Reagan. You get a lot more of Father Karras's, like, the backgrounds and stuff, which is pretty typical of a lot of books, is that when they're trying to go and film these ones, they're like, well, there's 20 pages of this person's background or 20 more pages of tense scenes of her messing with a Ouija board.
Right. We're going for the Ouija board.
Here we go. Here's 2 minutes of her explaining, I use a Ouija board, and that's the, we get it. But that's what, like, I think the major differences are. Who do we have cast here? We have some awesome people. Probably the most famous one, at least for me, was Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's so cool. Like Seventh Seal. I mean, I always think of Minority Report, which is one of his other, like, later career movies.
Right.
He's just such a layered actor in that even when he plays a good guy, he still feels kind of evil.
Yeah.
Like,
he's got a weird, ominous aura to him when you watch him on screen.
Exactly. And there was a whole thing where he's wearing old age makeup.
Yeah.
Like a ton of it.
It's crazy. I watched like some behind the scenes of the process for them doing the aging and stuff. It was really spectacular, especially for the time. I mean, looked great. It was awesome.
Well, that's the crazy thing about it is most people thought he was older because they really somehow managed to get what he looked like older.
I know.
Which, like, a lot of these ones is like, oh, they do a transformation. It's like, like, doesn't really look like them when they're older. It looks like exactly like him when he's older, except like you could tell his hair is like
healthy.
Well, that's like a fake white.
Okay,
kinda.
yeah.
I always was so amazed 'cause I'm like, that's exactly how he looks when he aged.
They knocked it out of the park with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I just that's the one I'm blown away. I think so. So many people have trouble believing it because I think he was only in his 40s or something,
right,
when he did it. So yeah, he was pretty young at that point to be playing that old of a.
I know.
Yeah, great. Of course, the other famous person we have here is Linda Blair. Reagan.
Yeah,
I mean,
she was 12 or no, she was like 13 or 14 when she filmed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they put her through the ringer in that movie, man.
Yeah. And we're talking about some of that with like the different scenes, but
yeah,
really good in this film. Almost shockingly so. Yeah, just plays a normal person really well.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, as we see the movies go along, we're going to see his change in that.
Yes.
But for this particular performance, I get why it's so famous.
Right.
Yeah, it's because it just seems like there's no camera in the room. It's just, it feels like a camera's just in the room, you know? It's just crazy. Some of the other ones you have here are Jason Miller as Father Karras. Awesome.
Yep.
He's so good. And we're going to see him return in the other movies as well. Ellen Burstyn as the mom, Chris. And one of the most important people who we don't actually see on screen is Mercedes McCambridge, who is the voice of, is it the devil?
Pazuzu.
It's Pazuzu. So, oh my God. Crazy.
Well, the voice is so iconic in this movie.
Yes.
It's, when you think of The Exorcist and especially like the exorcism scene itself, the voice is, the special effects, of course, are one of the big parts, but the voice is what haunts you for days after that movie.
It's uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
But yeah, let's just talk about the plot here. So now we got the actors out of the way.
Yeah.
So you know who we're talking about and who's amazing in it. Plot's pretty simple. Reagan, a daughter, young girl, playing with a Ouija board.
Yep.
Or Ouija. Some people say, did they say Ouija in the movie, right?
Ouija board, I've
heard say, most people say Ouija or Ouija, whatever. Like, there's so many different ways. People, it's like the internet nowadays.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's actually pronounced, Oi Mahada. It's like, how did I not see it?
Yes.
It was the umlaut. But yeah, plays with Ouija board and stuff goes crazy.
Yeah.
Basically gets possessed by a demon. Just it goes all kinds of horrific.
Yeah, because there's no explanation for any of the weird absurdities that are happening in the house with the weird noises in the attic or the bed violently shaking and lifting off the ground.
Yeah.
She's taken to some like medical physicians who are like, "Mom, she's normal. Like everything's fine."
Yeah.
So it's all in her head.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
Exactly. And there's a whole thing about the mom. The mom is an actress,
right?
And which is always so funny when there's like those movies in a movie.
Yeah.
And it always throws me off in this one. But just trying to see all the doctors and there's many scenes dedicated to Reagan in a hospital. And
those scenes are so intense.
Yeah.
I think they actually got real one, it was a real hospital. The lighting was exactly how the hospital was, which gives it just the most ominous feeling to it. And I think I want to say it was real doctors also.
Wouldn't even surprise me.
Yeah.
It's to build the tension. And the one thing this movie is really great at is building tension.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much the plot. Girl possessed. How do we solve it? And after the doctors trying to go through the religious beliefs,
right.
Jesuit priest, to try and do an exorcism, like straight up, it's like
the whole movie is like a race against the clock.
Essentially
to save Reagan, and that does it creates so much tension in this movie. And
throughout the movie, we do see it cuts back and forth between Reagan and the mom dealing with this thing, and then Father Karras, like his life, and he's pretty much just a tortured soul. Doesn't have much faith anymore, and he's questioning himself.
Right.
He's essentially like a psychiatric doctor priest.
Yeah.
And so believing in the science aspect of it and all this stuff.
What a weird career path.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and one of the things I forgot to mention too is also the beginning. There's a whole beginning part that I always forget is in this movie.
Oh, it takes place in northern Iraq.
But yeah, there's this whole flashback to Father Marin having excavations and archaeological stuff.
Yeah, discovered a sculpture of Pazuzu himself, which somehow gets back to the States, or Pazuzu follows him.
Something like where the spirit is linked to him in some way, or it's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But it's really cool, the cutting back and forth between everything until they meet up, like the priests and everything, that we get a little bit of background on everybody before they come in.
Right.
Oh man, throughout the whole film, you just see Reagan get more and more screwed up.
Yep, and with the scarring getting more intense on the face, and even having scars written on her abdomen.
Yeah,
help me on her abdomen. Ugh, terrifying.
That is, the makeup and stuff is crazy. Which is just, so iconic at this point. I know it's hard to like, we have something so iconic, it's hard to almost talk about because you're just like, everyone just knows.
Everyone knows it. Like the 360 head, where Reagan's head turns 360 degrees. That was like a prosthetic doll of Reagan's head, and it sat in the green room, like the makeup room. So every day when she had to get makeup done, she was just staring at her demonic head the whole time.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Just that part of it is almost just amazing in and of itself. But it's just, they got it so horribly right.
Well, there was they had a couple different options for the makeup. Some made her look more like a witch with like dark black hair. Mm-hmm. And then they just realized that it wasn't working, and what worked best was if the wounds and all that kind of demonic stuff looked more self-inflicted than an actual possession. And I think that's what makes it really work, is that, you can still see Reagan through the possession. It's not covering up, totally obscuring her identity or anything like that. It gives you more of a connection to Reagan throughout the entire movie. So I think that's what really made it stick for this movie.
That's accurate too, yeah. When you see it, it literally just looks like somebody who's really sick, bloated, and has been harming themselves. Because they tie up her hands to try and like restrain her so she can't hurt herself. But then when it cuts, and you don't really see her trying to hurt herself that much after a certain point, you see there's a very memorable scene with the crucifix.
Yes.
Which, that's the whole thing. But after a while, they just have her tied up, and then you can see like it literally looks like she was clawing at the skin on her face.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh, so horror. Just horrible.
Yeah.
One of the cool special effects that we have in this is the vomiting.
The projectile vomit, which was pea soup and oatmeal.
Yeah. And actually, it went wrong. So the whole thing where it shoots out and hits Father Karras in the face, it wasn't supposed to hit him in the face. It was supposed to
hit him in the chest.
Yeah, but it hit him in the face, and apparently he was really mad about that. But his reaction is real, like it's genuine.
Man, all the actors were put through a lot during the filming of this.
Absolutely.
And I gotta give them credit that they all managed to stay in character throughout most of the torture they were put through. Whether it was the director literally shooting off shotguns to get reactions from the actors.
And Jason Miller was pissed about that,
Oh,
too.
yeah, absolutely.
He's like, I don't need you to shoot off a gun. I'm an actor. Like,
yes.
It's not necessary. You hire me to act.
I know. And the actress who played Chris almost got her back broken from the scene where Reagan slaps her and she goes flying across. She literally almost like did some serious damage to herself.
Yeah, instead of it it's so okay to me. The whole concept of this is so weird because they had a cable. So when Reagan hits her, it's supposed to she's supposed to like fall back against the window, whatever. And they had a cable so it could look like force is shooting her away. Okay, first I think you just could have jumped backwards and it probably would have been
she
okay.
could have, yes.
But they have like a whole harness and all this stuff hooked up to her, and so when it goes back, they just yanked it really hard.
Yeah, and she kept saying like, don't tug so hard. Yeah. And the guy controlling the rig and the director gave each other a little secret look, and he was like, give it to her. He was like, really? And yanked it. Yep. Same thing with Reagan, too, when she's screaming, make it stop. That's actually her screaming, make it stop, because the back brace that she was in was getting loose as she was being shaken, so her body was slamming up against two metal plates the entire time. So she's actually screaming for help in that scene. That's genuine reaction.
There's a whole bunch of stuff like that.
It's so weird.
It's horrible. It's horrible. But yeah, like there's a whole bunch of back injuries, slip discs.
Do you know about the ominousness around the filming and stuff like that? Like the studio caught on fire mysteriously over a weekend, and they had numerous deaths along the filming process of people really close to them. Like I think 9 people who were close to the people filming died.
What's even creepier is the 2 people who die in the film, other than obviously Jason Miller,
right?
But the people who die in the film, like it's his mom, and then I think it's like the person who's watching Reagan who died.
Oh, yeah, Burke.
Yeah, Burke. Like they both died before the movie even came out, and so it's even creepier that you're like, but even when it came out, when people saw it for the first time, they were already dead.
Right.
Like in real life.
Oh, that's so weird.
It's
that's so weird.
There's so many, like, we could list it forever because people have made all these kinds of connection over the years. One of the other things that really works in this movie that is an unseen thing, or I guess barely seen, is subliminal.
Yeah, the subliminal imagery thrown throughout the movie.
Yes, and throughout this film, there are these shots of somebody in white face makeup like a demon. Apparently those were just makeup tests that it was like, it seems too hokey.
Right.
And they were like, okay, well, they had the footage shot, and then William Friedkin was like, hold on. Like,
I got an idea.
Yeah. And so you'll see in Father Karras's dream sequences pop up like really quick.
Yep. And I think he also appears up as a shadow on the wall in one scene, if I'm correct.
I think you're right too, where it's like it's on the right side. But there's just that use, and then let alone the audio cues for it. They use pigs squealing and all this stuff just like layered into all these other scenes.
Yeah.
And all that it basically intentionally use sounds that are known, at least at that time, were known to make people uncomfortable. And it works.
It totally works.
Because I don't know if people listen to this will understand, but like if you go in a room that just has blasting noise, even if the whole room, like, you put in earplugs and you look at it, it's just totally normal. It has like a reflex in your brain to be like, I need to get out of here,
Yeah, totally.
And that's what this movie seems to, especially like, I don't know, I've seen it so many times over the years, and it's still like when I really sit down and watch it, it just makes me
gut-wrenching,
uneasy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's really rare for a movie to do that.
Well, especially a movie from 73 to still have that same gut-wrenching effect throughout this many years and to still like hold up against time and stuff like that. Like it's still a very relevant movie and it holds up. It's great.
Yeah. I would say the biggest problem with this movie is one I've talked about many a time with older movies. The pacing is it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
It's for a 70s movie, it has a kind of slow start. I'd say it's better than some other movies I've seen, but just the setup and getting it all going, it's the good thing about it now in retrospect is that everybody knows what's going to happen.
Right.
If you're watching it for the first time, this was some obscure movie, you're like, what's up with this acting thing and the father and all this stuff, it's like, let's get to the demons, But I mean, it's a negative to some people. Me, I'm just, I guess I'm used to watching boring stuff, so.
Well, and I was going to say, I mean, like, it could be seen as negative for some people, but for me, I think the slow build helped it, in my opinion, because, I don't know, it's that same thing of building the tension. It definitely was slow in certain parts, but again, you gotta start somewhere to build tension, so.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about this movie, and I think it's what makes it so different than most movies to me, especially in the horror film genre. The way it's edited, to me, I'm still shocked every time I watch it, where it just cuts away from the horror of scenes. Most horror movies, it's like, oh, we need to run away from the demon or whatever. And then it's like
action shot. And then
it's like, oh, and then they jump out the window. It's like, we're good, whatever.
Yeah.
There is no relief in a lot of these scenes.
The whole movie's a tease, man.
Yeah, the one that comes to my mind every single time I think about it is there's a scene where the mom is confronting Reagan in the bedroom, whatever, and then has a wardrobe that pushed towards her.
Yes.
So that whole scene where she runs to the door, she's shaking the door, she's like, ah, starts screaming, and just cuts away. And there's no resolution to that. It's just that, like, this mom is being tortured. You don't ever see that, oh, she's okay.
But it just makes it feel like this is a normal occurrence in this household now. Like, this is the new norm, is that now Reagan is screaming and flying up the walls, and this is what the mom has to live with. Welcome to a day in the life.
Exactly. And that's why I think it feels so real, is because it's just like life, right? There's not just some perfect resolution to, like, some tragedy you're going through.
No.
This is horrible, ongoing
Exactly.
thing.
And they went into filming this movie with the intention of filming it like a documentary. And that's actually why the director was chosen for this project, because he was really good at getting that kind of documentary, kind of gritty feel to it. But that's also what contributes to it, because it literally just makes it feel like you're a fly on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus the color grading in this. Okay, I did watch the new restored version of it, by the way. So maybe I'm being influenced by that, because this movie has a great film restoration.
Yeah.
Colors and everything, so good.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Love the dynamic between going from like super really, really bright scenes, like especially in the intro with like Northern Iraq, where it's almost blindingly bright, to just super really, really dark, heavy shadows everywhere.
Speaking of that room that Reagan's in, what's the trivia about that, huh?
What's the trivia about that? Well, I know for the beds, they had 3 different beds that each had different mechanics.
Wow, that's kind of weird.
So some were meant to just jump around, some were meant to like really lift up and levitate. There's a bunch of different stuff like that.
Plus, what was the temperature?
Oh,
it was nice warm.
To get
nice warm, right?
To get their breath to show up on camera, it was 20 degrees below freezing.
Ugh.
Just to get their breath to show up, because the air conditioners were decreasing
below freezing. So it'd be, whoa,
that's what I heard, was it was 20 degrees below freezing.
Well, it only needs to be 20 degrees to be below freezing.
But the thing is, the air conditioners dropped the humidity, so no breath was showing up at freezing. So to get the actual breath to show up, they had to make it even colder.
Oh, God, that's creepy.
Yep.
Well, so it's really cold in there.
Yes.
And Reagan, Linda Blair, was only in like just the
nightgown.
Yeah, just a nightgown.
Just a nightgown.
She still to this day says that whenever it's cold, she like hates the cold. Hates whatever, but yeah,
I wouldn't blame her.
Yeah,
God.
she was in fear of getting like really sick and just felt awful doing the whole thing. And but apparently like the camera guys were all bundled up. And then it's like,
I think between scenes she was slightly bundled up. I saw some footage of her with like a jacket, and that was it. But that's still not enough for that temperature.
For the art, that's horrible.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, Exorcist, awesome movie. Oh, I'm gonna say some spoilers here because it leads us into the next movie, by the way.
Yeah.
So at the end of the movie, Father Karras, he takes Pazuzu into his... Oh, by the way, we didn't mention it. It's not the devil. It's like this demon, Pazuzu.
Even though at one point it is said, I am the devil. Yeah.
Yeah. But then Marin, who's played by Max von Sydow, says like, oh, you can't listen to demons there. They just lie or whatever it is. But I don't think it's supposed to be the devil. I think it's supposed to be
It's
demon.
Pazuzu.
Yeah, it's Pazuzu. So... like, Father Karras is going after Reagan, like, choking her a little bit, and is like, come into me.
Yeah.
Because he already has killed Marin, basically, like, gives him a heart attack, and he basically just keels over or dies. And so Father Karras is like, in a last-ditch effort, is like, come into me. And sure enough, it does.
Yep.
And Father Karras has, like, the contacts and is like, oh, I'm going to kill you, Reagan.
I gotta say, in that scene, there's a transition from when he's wearing, like, the demon makeup right before he jumps out of the window, as we were going to say. There's this beautiful transition where it goes back to his normal features in just a blink of an eye. And I think it's so cool, that transition. I haven't seen it done as well in a movie.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Gotta get on this. But yeah, right as he's about to kill Reagan, he regains enough of his sense to where he just jumps out the window and bounces on the steps. It's really cool, actually, like stunt shot. Awesome stunt shot. Friggin' so cool. Because it looks like it really hurts.
I'm sure it did. That stuntman, I think he threw himself down those stairs twice. Yeah,
That's some commitment.
it really is. Yeah.
But just great scene. But Father Karras presumably dies at the end of this movie. Reagan is free of this, and the mom is just crying and all stuff. By the way, throughout the whole movie, there's been this detective who has been researching this event and he shows up here and there. It's not just like driving every single scene. He's just one of the players like that cuts to and from. Basically, one of the things that he was investigating heavily was the death of Burke, who had been presumably thrown from Reagan's window earlier in the movie.
Right. And whose head had turned 360 degrees before thrown out the window.
Exactly. And I guess he's suspicious of Reagan. That's what we're led to believe. It's kind of like his intention in the movie is not really stated that he believes Reagan killed this guy, but it's kind of like, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so at the end of it, he's kind of looking at the situation because they all just run out right at that moment. He's like looking at the window, looking at Reagan, looking at this whole thing. Is like, what?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. We're going to learn more about all this stuff later. So what actually happened at the end of this movie. But presumably, happy ending, other than the multitudes of death. So it sucks because when you see Father Karras, you just want the best for him.
Right.
But I don't think he quite gets it.
Yeah. No.
So Exorcist goes on to be one of the biggest horror movies of all time. Even in its time, it was extremely popular, extremely controversial, banned from many towns, couldn't be shown. In fact, there were a lot of bus tours and routes where people had made money where they rented a bus or whatever to be like, oh, if you get on this bus, I'll take you right to where you can see The Exorcist.
No way,
yep.
really?
Yeah,
that's great.
And so they'd be like, well, it's not in this town, not in the next town, but do you want to get in here? I'll take you right.
I got a Greyhound. Let's go.
I'll take you there. I'll take you back. And
Wow.
so there's a lot of people who did that as well. People who were so shocked by it, they fainted. And this has happened over the years with many popular horror movies, like Frankenstein and stuff like that. But this was another one of those groundbreaking ones where it was just so shocking to the senses that like literally people are fainting, ambulances have to come and take them out of the theater. Like a lot of theaters, it's like the vomit and stuff. They're just like, oh, we can't handle this, so we're just gonna stop running it because like we don't want to keep cleaning up vomits. Pretty controversial. Linda Blair, who played Reagan, obviously extremely young at this time, it's just probably suffered the worst out of anybody. I mean, Max von Sydow has talked about it. He's like, oh, it's so controversial and like it was a pain in the butt to have to deal with all this.
Well, she didn't really know what was going on at the time. I mean, she just kind of did, as she said, she just kind of did what she was told.
Exactly.
I mean, the director kind of had to like, I don't know, playfully get her into these situations to be able to get her to perform. But she didn't really know the gravity of kind of what was going on at the time.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing that she talked about when they were doing the press tour for it, is the people were asking all these philosophical questions to her, like, what does it mean that, like, when you say this, and, like, what does that mean about humanity, and, like, what do you believe in humanity? And she's like, I don't know,
that's what they told me to say.
Yeah, what are you talking about? It's in the script, and that's, but, like, apparently that was one of the hardest things for her, is, like, people trying to ask her these super deep adult questions. She's like, I'm just an actor.
I'm like 14.
I'm an actor.
Wanna, like, hang out with my friends. And...
Yeah, but she had to get security for, I think it was up to half a year or something.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and it was paid for by the film studio, because they were like, I mean, like, she was getting all kinds of death threats. And,
really?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It feels modern.
Yeah.
but there was all these kinds of horrible things that people were doing, and just they don't have any sense of reality of, like, this is just a movie.
Right.
But it just seems so much more real to people, especially, I can't imagine back then,
Yeah.
And so it's not to say this movie was extremely profitable, especially for how low the budget was for it. But everyone involved, while they were happy for the press to be like, oh, take a look at these actors, it was also like they got just all these other people who just thought it was something bigger, or it's not just a movie, or the movie does ask a lot of philosophical questions, and it is religious, and of course we know some of the most controversial movies of all time based in religion, and so it was really hard for a lot of these people to kind of just go on with their lives for a little bit because of the controversy surrounding it. But we will see a sequel. I hope it's good. Do you think it's going to be good?
Oh God, I hope so.
Me too. Well, that was The Exorcist. Absolutely awesome. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. Like I said, if you're not used to the pacing of it, it's it's probably gonna feel slow for you, especially if you used
but
to.
bear with it. I promise it will pay off in the end.
Absolutely.
Such a good movie.
Yes. Also, there is an extended director's cut. Oh, is it called the director's cut? I don't know if it's called the director's cut.
Yeah, it's the director's cut.
It's called the director's cut. Adds like 11 more minutes worth of footage and
Right.
stuff. The most famous added part of it is when Reagan walks down the stairs on all fours and it's all creepy and stuff. And apparently in the original one, they had like, because it's like a harness. Like it's
the spider walk?
Yeah. They had like a harness in, like with the new one, when they added the footage back in, they were able to digitally go in and edit out. So it looks really creepy.
Yeah.
Like it's really, ugh. But they thought that the idea of having Reagan leave the room was almost just like less creepy. But to me, I'm like, that's creepy, man. I don't want that. I don't want her in the house. Like,
no.
you do like 100,000 more scares if she could just crawl around the house.
I know.
So, ugh. But anyway, that's the major scene that was added back in. There's some other stuff in it too, but so it's two different versions of it now that you can find a lot of different places. It's been on DVD for a million years. It's probably on one of the streaming services.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's The Exorcist.
Go watch it. Welcome to Random Interesting Got Stuff
Riggs.
It's AKA Riggs. So we got some things. They're random. They're interesting. You know, we get it covered. Two of my favorite things that I've mentioned a million times on here. But somehow, no, I did review Blade Runner. That's right. Of course I did. It's probably like the first movie we did on here. Favorite movie. Anyway, we also have Sandman today. So I've talked about Sandman a number of times because over the last several years, there have been updates to, they've been trying to make like a mini-series, any kind of adaptation of it that's like video. There's a really great fan one that was done a little bit ago, but doesn't have Dream or anything in it. But, oh man, they announced the cast for the new series that's supposed to be happening for Netflix. Like I said, with Netflix, that's when I have hope because Netflix seems to get stuff made no matter what.
Yeah.
They just like barrel through to get it made.
Why not?
Plus, I don't think they've ever turned a profit yet because they just keep buying up franchises and just putting things in production. They're playing the long game with it.
Yep.
But here is the cast that's been announced so far. So Tom Sturridge, no idea who that is. I don't know who any of these people are, but I thought I would announce them so people could know that there's actually progress here. So we have Tom Sturridge as Dream, Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer, Vivian something. I'm sorry. As Lucienne, all these people. Anyway, there's been a cast announced for it. So Neil Gaiman, has said that this is astonishing, and I'm so grateful to the actors and to all the Sandman collaborators, Netflix, Warner Bros., DC, to Alan Heinberg and David Gore, and the legions of crafters and geniuses on the show for making the wildest of all my dreams into reality, which gives me so much hope that it will actually come out.
Yeah.
I think even, God, I can't even remember the first time we even talked about it on the podcast. It was like, oh, God, I want to say, who's that guy? The guy who was in that movie with Bruce Willis, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, okay,
like,
yeah.
He was supposed to be Dream, I think, initially, and then I guess that fell through, and now they, I wanted to see it for so long. I know they came out with, like, the radio play version thing of it recently, but man, like, I cannot tell you how good that series is. It's almost like a wormhole of, like, you just get so into it when you read it. It's not easy to read either. It's like a very, like, involved, you can just, you can flip through Spider-Man while you're just like on the toilet or something, and they're just like, okay, I read it, Spider-Man defeats the Vulture. Even some of the more in-depth ones aren't so mind-wrenching, but Sandman, it almost like messes with your everything. I mean, it's crazy. Really good. So I'm excited for that.
Cool.
What do you got, huh?
Punk Rock Bowling 2021 postponed. It was supposed to happen in May.
That's punk.
I know, but that's all I know.
It's interesting. But hey,
it is interesting. It's supposed to be planned for the fall, but we'll see how that goes just due to the pandemic.
It's like a festival, right?
Yeah, it's like a big old music festival.
Does it travel or does it?
I believe, I don't think it does. I think it's held in California, if I'm correct. It's like a big old beach party where a lot of bands play. So
yeah, well, I mean, boy, that's a sign of the times. In comic book news, there's going to be a prequel comic book to Blade Runner. It's going to be called Blade Runner Origins on February 24th. Now, awesome. I love anything related to Blade Runner. As I've said before, I transcended the point of where the fandom. Yeah, people. Okay, there's like a lot of people who are like, well, if you just make a reboot, then it's just gonna tarnish the whatever and blah blah. Then it ruins. Now, I'm pretty sure at this point, I don't even care if they release anything Blade Runner. I just am appreciative.
Yeah.
I have transcended that point a long time ago to where I'm just like,
it's Blade Runner.
I'll just look into it.
Yeah.
So I like way before there was the 2049, the Ryan Gosling one or whatever. Like I read the original book sequels.
Oh yeah.
Because they have 2, 3, and 4, Edge of Human, and then Talon's Eye, and whatever the other ones. One of those is absolutely horrible. But honestly, I was like really into it because Blade Runner. So I don't really care. And there's also a previous Blade Runner comic book that came out just like 2, 3 years ago.
Who's publishing the new one?
Someone. Well, Blade Runner Origins #1. So it's going to be coming out. It's a prequel to the original Blade Runner, which obviously because it takes place in 2019. Now it's in the past, which is always the problem with setting movies in the future.
Hey.
So I'm just really excited for it because I just like anything. Now, okay, I'll say this about the last comic book series that came out. Okay, I get it. It's like, it was pretty controversial in a lot of ways, and people found the main character kind of boring, and they felt like, the one thing that was cool about Blade Runner to begin with was that even though it was 1982, it seemed so far ahead. It didn't seem trapped in the 80s. In a funny way, because now it seems so 80s, right?
Yeah.
Because all the neon and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that was what they thought the future would be like, right? It's funny because the last comic book series that came out for Blade Runner, a lot of people felt like they took too much of what's right now and put it in the comic book, which is very hard to not do for especially a lot of writers, because they're, a lot of these comic books are written so fast, and it's like hard not to draw on stuff now. And that's also what I felt, in my opinion, they did with 2049, the movie, is that like, Blade Runner was it was tropey somewhat, but it kind of created the tropes for a lot of things. And then 2049 almost felt like you're the chosen one. Oh, but you're not. And then like the armies of rebellion and all stuff. And I was just like, I kind of got away from what the original was, like such a small story in a lot of ways. So, I mean, like I have problems with the newer stuff as well to some extent. I don't think it's as good as the original stuff, but
maybe this comic book will pick it up, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that'd be kind of cool.
But it's always interesting just to see the parts of it, like them expand upon it. And like I said, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I pretty much will accept anything Blade Runner at this point. So it's like a good and bad thing. It's good for me, but probably some people are like, why would they do that? You know what's a comic book series I really liked?
What's that?
It was the Big Trouble in Little China comic book series.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It is.
Is it good?
Oh, it's awesome.
Really?
It is so funny. Like, they did it so comedic.
Yeah.
Like it's like cartoon almost. It's like it's almost like if you watch Big Trouble in Little China, the cartoon, the book.
Okay.
And so they keep having all these things where Jack Burton goes into flashbacks like, well, this is like Mrs. Burton #3 goes, she's just like a leech, and then it's like, and like he describes all these like very vague things, and then but it's like it just shows from his perspective, and he's just too oblivious and stupid to realize that she's like a vampire. And so it's like she never went out in the sun, whatever. It's just like all these crazy things are like, one's just like she had like I did everything in that relationship, and it's like turns out he was hypnotized by like a gypsy.
Oh my god.
Like, it's just like
I will have to check that out.
It's so cool. But I thought I mentioned that one too, just because that came to mind of
why not?
Like a comic book expanding upon it, that it's so ridiculous, but it works so well. So but yeah, check all those things out and get some things to be excited to come out. Also, Cabaret Voltaire came out the song. Not my favorite band. A little too electronic for me at times. But thought I would mention it because a lot of people enjoy that particular artist. So there you go. Let's get back into some possessions.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Sometimes a sequel is better.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes a sequel is better. People often say that Bride of Frankenstein is better than the original Frankenstein. Some people say that Labyrinth 2 doesn't exist, so it's not a sequel, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, when I say this, The Exorcist II has a chance to be the greatest sequel of all time, right? Because it's already an off-the-wall, supernatural.
How could they mess it up?
Yeah. It's absolutely awful.
It's so bad.
It's so
horrible.
My
god. You couldn't pay me to watch this movie again.
What happened? Oh my god. So 1977, 4 years after the first movie. You must think, there's no way they got the original people because it can't be any of the people. It's totally...
It's the original people.
Yeah, you have Max von Sydow and you have Linda Blair coming back, both as Father Merrin, Max von Sydow as Father Merrin. You have Linda Blair
As Reagan.
Oh my gosh. It is horrendous. Absolutely almost unwatchable.
I couldn't believe what I was watching when you showed it to me. I couldn't believe it.
I told you it was going to be bad. I told you.
I know.
And it's
I love bad movies too. I love terrible movies. This wasn't even good because it was bad. There was nothing exciting about this movie.
Yeah. It was horrible. Horrible. Now, I know we say that and you're thinking, it's a podcast. You must be playing it up. No. Just look it up. It's ranked as some of the worst sequels ever made.
Ask me on the street. I will give you the same exact response.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Linda Blair has gone on to say it was just horrendous. She's like, I can't, I read a good script. That was not what was filmed. This movie, it picks up a few years after the first movie.
4 or 5 years after.
Yeah. Just the same amount of time that actually in real life had passed. And at this point, I believe Linda Blair was 17 years old. And then behind the scenes, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened where there were script rewrites and there was stunts that had gone wrong. There's stuff with different actors not wanting to participate in certain things. I'll talk more about that as we go along. Also, Linda Blair was having some personal issues at this time. In the run-up to this, she had developed a drug habit.
Yeah.
She showed up chronically late to the set. In fact, even, I guess, saying jokingly, but very seriously to the directors, going, I can't believe I was only 10 minutes late today. Isn't that great? Which just shows you how disconnected everyone was when they were filming this.
Yeah.
John Boorman was the director of this movie. The best thing about this movie is literally the film poster, which I think is pretty cool. But John Boorman, he has done a lot of really cool movies, but
this was not one.
This is not one of them. If you want a very short synopsis on this movie, it's locusts and staring at light bulbs.
Correct. That's it. And James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, yes.
That was the most exciting part of this movie, was just getting to see him. I was like, oh, cool. And that was all of my excitement wrapped up.
Yep. That's pretty much the only thing you're like, oh, James Earl Jones in this.
Cool.
And then, yeah.
Locusts.
Just locusts.
More and more locusts.
Yeah, so basically the plot of this movie is that Reagan is in this kind of institution, or she's getting therapy for the experiences that she had those years ago. Is basically trying to figure out this doctor who's actually played by the actress who played Nurse Ratched, which is awesome, Louise Fletcher. That's awesome too.
I know, yeah, that was pretty cool.
But she's actually very nice in this movie. Basically trying to do some behavioral therapy and to figure out what really happened. Or when I say behavioral therapy, now what are you imagining? Sitting on a couch and
tell me about your childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie literally becomes like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
In that they have these extremely long, very boring, did I mention long sequences?
Wait, what was it? Were the sequences long?
They were long.
Okay, got it, yeah.
And boring.
Oh, good.
So, this movie is 2 hours long, just like the first one.
Oh, I know. Ugh.
Which I guess they were trying to mimic the first one to have a 2 hour long movie, but
yeah.
Imagine, if you will, and it's hard to even imagine, we know how bad it is. It's two people sitting in chairs on table, and there's these little mechanism in the middle where they hook the stuff up to their head, and then the light bulbs just shine their face to, they say, get the pulse to be like or the tone.
Yeah, you want to lower your tone.
They go deeper.
Go deeper. Make your tone go deeper as this light bulb and this tone is flashing simultaneously.
It's lit like a light bulb, and it goes bing, bing, bing with the light.
Yep.
And they try to get them to link up.
And apparently once both light bulbs from each person and the tones are synced up, you can enter the other person's mind, I guess, is the idea.
Yeah. And this is in an Exorcist movie.
Yes.
Right? But it's seriously sci-fi.
Absolutely.
And but this doctor, they have this whole sequence where the doctor enters Reagan's mind. Pazuzu, the possessed Reagan is still there and tries to kill her, and also, but then they have a thing where you can say, don't remember it. What happened? It's so stupid. Richard Burton plays Philip Lamont. He's the Karras of this movie, where he's trying to research what happened, and the whole thing basically kicks off as the research. This priest is sent to figure out what happened to Father Karras and Merrin.
Yeah.
and they're trying to discount the order of priests or whatever. It's trying to, like, the church is trying to discount Marin by saying, oh, he's like he was like totally insane. Like,
right.
And, oh, God, it's just horrendous.
It's hard to even explain the plot of this movie because it just felt like nothing went on. Like, I can hardly explain what happened in there.
Yeah. Well, it's like, then there's like a lot of flashbacks. Like the priest in this one sees the flashbacks to Father Marin's experiences where he is helping this boy who can control locusts, Kokumo, and who is James Earl Jones now. I don't even see how any of it really links up to it's like.
They don't.
It's like, there's this whole thing of people who have extraordinary abilities and are spiritually like gifted, are higher beings. And that's like what James Earl Jones's character is. And then they try to say that Reagan is like a higher being.
Similarly to this, and to James Earl Jones.
Yeah, and then Pazuzu like attacks those people specifically. So that's why Reagan was chosen.
But there's no explanation of why Reagan is extraordinary, right? Is there any explanation for it? At least there wasn't anything to lead you in the first movie that there was anything extraordinary about her, and that was the charm of the first one. It was just a regular old girl. It was just...
Well, that was the thing, is that, sort of. So it's like, remember there's like the scene where Reagan has like powers to make the girl talk?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like she has these extraordinary healing abilities.
Yeah, in the therapy office, there's this girl who had autism, so she couldn't communicate very well. And just by striking up a conversation, Reagan manages to get her to speak like full sentences out of nowhere. And all these doctors are like, how is she speaking? How do you do this? And also, might I mention, the therapy office has glass walls. I think the last thing I want in a therapy session is to have people looking at me when I'm at my most vulnerable state. What an awful design for a therapy office.
This is like a lot of, it's so weird because there's a lot of really cool sets in this movie. None of them, well, I mean, the movie is awful. It's just absolutely horrible. But there's a lot of these sets that aren't used that well, or they try to do like these cool shots where it's like panning across the therapy offices because they're all glass, and it's like, oh, you can see everybody, and that's what a cool shot. But it's like,
but it doesn't contribute to anything.
Well, in practice, it's like that's an awful way to have that kind of office, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a mess. There's also this whole thing where they are like on the skyscraper building, the side of this skyscraper, and the mirrors, and there's like this weird bird cage thing that's like standing.
Reagan's like standing off the edge of a balcony. I forget, was it New York that they were in or something like that? I believe
so.
Yeah, and didn't you say Linda Blair was like actually on that skyscraper with her feet like hanging off the edge of the building?
There's like that one scene where she like screams, and it's like real.
I know.
Like, I mean,
I don't know how many stories she is up, but it's tall. It's a tall building.
Yeah, but they try all these like these reflection scenes with the mirrors and the windows and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Too bad everything surrounding these shots sucks.
Yeah.
There's flashbacks to the Marin stuff, which
it's hard to follow, to be honest.
It really is. I mean, the movie, even if you put the events in order, it's just boring because they repeat the same things. Like, you just keep seeing the locusts. The locust. There's so much stuff about locusts. You know, it's like a freaking National Geographic thing about locusts.
It really is. I think a lot of the footage in there was probably taken from National Geographic. To be honest, like, there's these weird long landscape scenes that go on for like 2 minutes of just like a helicopter going through, forget where it was shot in, Africa somewhere, I believe.
I believe so. Well, a whole bunch of it was filmed in the studio.
Oh,
that was the whole thing, where it's like exterior, like nature shots are probably shot actually in like Africa or Egypt or something. But it's so obvious when there's a studio shot because like you see the rocks, and like the rocks are just like very obviously like painted. Yeah. Like fake rocks.
Any close-ups with actors or anything like that, it's very obviously on a soundstage.
Yeah.
Didn't you say like for the locusts, they used packing peanuts and painted them brown and just shot them out of like basically like a leaf blower? And they were like, those are locusts.
Yeah, there was like, because they had imported these locusts for a whole bunch of scenes. So like that's why you see a whole bunch of live locusts and stuff.
Right.
But they would die so fast in the environment. Like, there's like 100 a day would die.
In the environment, or also, they tried to, because the locusts kept landing, so they were like, oh, we want them to keep flying around. So they even tried, like, pulling their legs off to make sure that they couldn't land.
Still
and then they just kept killing locusts, so they ended up just being like, well, let's just grab some packing peanuts.
Yep.
And especially, like, later on in the movie, you could very obviously tell that they are packing peanuts.
So, and we watched it, like, a Blu-ray version of it, so it's like, watching like 1080p, you're like, That's definitely packing peanuts.
Yeah.
Like, it's so obvious when it changes from like real locusts to just.
I think they may have threw like a handful of live ones in there as well, but for a majority of it, you can just see them bouncing off and just kind of hitting the floor.
I know. It's so ridiculous. And Linda Blair has talked about in the interviews nowadays where she's like, oh, you know, it was a cool, you know, we were going to do another movie. And like I said, when she started the production of the movie, she's like, that's a really cool script. That's why she agreed to do it. Because, you know, they wanted her to do other movies and stuff. And she was like, you know, but then the rewrites came and the more rewrites came. And then I think it was like 3 or 4 major ones. And it just is a total wreck. They try all these things to connect to the first movie, which in some ways that's cool, but I swear it
doesn't quite, I don't want to say it devalues the first movie, but it definitely, the things that made the first movie stick out, they almost try to like erase in the second movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like they were trying to get rid of the charm of the first movie. I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? Just build off of what you already have instead of trying to almost come up with a new idea and scrap the old one.
Yeah. And there was a whole thing about this movie too where, and like some of the critics talked about this, where in the first film, it felt like a lot of people were exploiting Linda Blair, you know, as being so young and like the nature of the first film being too suggestive and not.
Right.
And so this one, it was more about like somewhat trying to like empower Reagan or make her seem stronger, or even though it's not really like that. But there's just a lot of really weird stuff in this. Like they have Reagan tap dancing in this film, which is super weird. It's supposed to be like way more fun and happy-go-lucky, and like, yes, I get it. I mean, that's some controversial stuff you're talking about with the first movie. It's like exploiting this actor and the content of it being so incredibly insane. But like, it's just, this is not the way to do it. This is not the way to go the other direction.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine what they were thinking. Like, I think William Friedkin talked about how he was working on another movie. This is director from the first film.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, do you want to see a cut of The Exorcist II? Oh, yeah, I'll check that out. It's before it had come out. And apparently, as soon as the machine came out that helps him, like, see each other's minds, he was just, like, started laughing because he's like, what were they thinking with this? Like, seriously. When you're watching it, you're like, what is going on in this stupid movie? Yeah, and that's the problem, is that while the first movie, it's like, it's a basic plot, right? Father Karras, it's like Reagan, it's like a little girl possessed when you stop it, right? That's a basic plot. This movie's like, we're trying to completely destroy Pazuzu and figure out all this background about superhuman people in order to be able to...
Yeah.
It's just totally awful. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But, James Earl Jones, good piece of trivia for this one. James Earl Jones was apparently like, when we were coming in to dub the audio, do the ADR, the automatic dialogue replacement, which is like actors do all the time, especially like noisy environments. So like the scene where it's all the locusts.
Right. They would go back in and overdub it and do that.
And so like, okay, well, we're going to watch it, whatever. He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm just going to read it a whole bunch of times, and you just splice it together. And so his lines for those scenes that are looped in, he just came in, read it a whole bunch of times, just walked out.
Yeah, he didn't even want to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'd probably do the same thing if I were him, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, God. I know that we're trying to tell you how bad this is. This movie's almost unwatchable.
Don't watch it alone. And it's not because it's scary. It's not because it's going to scare the crap out of you. It's just because you will not be able to sit through this without having at least one other person who you are very close to with you watching this. Otherwise, you're going to bail. Once the lights come out, the little light bulb machine, you're going to be like, I'm out, gone, done.
It's literally that bad. I mean, it's not even so bad it's good. It's just bad. It's just so bad it's bad.
Exactly.
And God, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking.
It's genuinely one of the worst movies I have ever seen.
I'm going to say some spoilers, but who the heck cares?
Yeah.
So,
no one's going to watch this.
Yeah. So I spent this whole movie basically saying like, oh, Pazuzu goes after these
gifted
people. And so then all of a sudden, Pazuzu or whatever, like the priest gets hypnotized to go back to the original house, which by the way, they couldn't even get the permits to go back to the original house. They would like recreate the room and all that stuff.
Is that right?
Yeah. They couldn't like get permits for any of the old places.
Awesome.
They go back to the house, and then the house, Pazuzu demon comes out, and then locusts fly into the house, and the house is cracking. There's also 2 Reagans, and the Reagan tries to like seduce the evil Reagan. There's literally like 2 Reagans.
Yes.
There's regular Reagan who's like human, and then
there's Pazuzu Reagan,
who's like all sexual and tries to like literally seduce the priest.
Yeah.
I'm not talking like, oh, there's one that's see-through and like a ghost. No, it's like literally like two physical Reagans in this house, which is it's like a mess. And Linda Blair refused to wear the full makeup again.
Yeah.
So they had to have like a double wear it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so like there's a person who looks like Linda Blair, but then they had to. It's pretty obvious when it switches, like at least to me, because I could see like the hair changes.
Right.
But she's like, I won't do the makeup. I won't do like the full makeup. Apparently she would do like a little bit of it, but she's like, I won't do the full thing. So anytime you see like the full shot of like transformed adult Reagan,
it's actually a different actress.
Different actress.
Wow.
It's just like in an attempt to get rid of this Reagan, the whole house like falls apart, and God, it's so horrible. Basically, at the end of it, Reagan's apparently fine again, and like, but there was this woman, like the one of the nannies or helpers was like all burned to death, or I mean, it's just, yeah, everything's normal again.
Yes.
Okay, it's just horrible.
Or is it ... who knows?
Yeah, it sucked. It's absolutely horrible. I don't even know how to put into words how boring this movie is. There must be another word.
I would rather watch paint dry.
Way more. That'd be way more interesting than that.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So don't watch it. It's in a whole bunch of Exorcist collections. Don't buy it if you don't have to.
Don't give any money to the people who made this. They don't deserve it.
The only thing I would recommend is the Shout Factory release, just because you can there's documentaries on it that talk about how it ended up so horrible.
Right.
But outside of that, don't actually go out of your way to watch this movie unless you're like us and you're so curious and you're doing or you're talking about it.
And slightly insane.
Yeah, absolutely, because it will drive you insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely horrible.
I had to take a breather after watching it. I was like, I need to go on a walk.
I know.
Take a cold shower or something.
Well, it almost turns you off from even wanting to watch anything else. Exorcist, which is probably why people haven't watched Exorcist 3, because 2's so bad. Why do I watch 3?
I know. Why would you?
Well, let's find out. And just after, that's it. This is the end of Exorcist 2. That's it. The end. Don't watch it. Horrible. Over it. Cameron.
Yes.
I'm sick of these Exorcist sequels.
I am too.
I don't want to see any more.
That's fair. But wait.
What's this?
I don't know. It's calling to me. It's
Exorcist
3. It's the Exorcist 3.
So, Exorcist 2 was absolutely horrendous. A movie which I don't think anybody should be subjected to.
No.
Exorcist 3.
Complete 180.
Totally awesome.
Oh my God, it's so good.
So good.
It's so good.
It's so good. So, this is actually directed by William Blatty, who's actually, wrote the original novel and adapted the screenplay for the first film. And this came out in 1990. So,
quite a gap between...
Yeah, 13-year gap there. This movie is freaking awesome.
It's so cool. There's so many great shots in it. Based
on the book Legion, which itself was a sequel to the original Exorcist, which, by the way, both of these ignored the events of the second movie.
Good.
Yeah, I know. But the movie was changed to be more like a callback to the first film. They had some extensive things that the studio wanted to adjust, and to make it they're like, we need to have an exorcism in it. Like I said, the book was Legion, and we saw a teaser trailer that listed as Exorcist 3 Legion.
But on the box art, I think it just says Exorcist 3.
Yeah, and the DVD and the poster and stuff just says The Exorcist 3. So I guess it's what we're going with. So this is 15 years after the original Exorcist, and the detective from the first movie, different actor in this, is played by George C. Scott. William Kinderman, that's the guy who I was telling you about, was coming in and out of the investigation in the first movie, and saw when Karras jumps out the window and bounces on the steps. So he's familiar with the characters from the first film, and just a kind of badass character.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's just totally this awesome. Everyone in this movie is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just totally cool.
Well, very well developed characters, in my opinion, played by great actors and actresses. They're just all around exciting, and I don't know, you're almost rooting for everybody in a weird way. In some way, shape, or form, you're kind of rooting rooting for everyone.
Yeah, you have Ed Flanders as Father Joseph Dyer. You have Jason Miller coming back as Father Karras.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's actually him. Like, it's,
I know.
Like, he's playing the character he played back in the 70s one. You have one of my favorites, Brad Dourif, who's just totally psychotic.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Playing the Gemini killer.
Yeah.
Who's... And this book...
Chilling.
Yeah.
Chilling.
He's gross. But you have him as the Gemini killer. And by the way, this was actually... A lot of the book Legion was based off of the Zodiac killings that was going on. And the Zodiac killer infamously said that one of his favorite comedies was The Exorcist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
there you go.
That's a whole thing. But this movie just, it's where do you even begin? It's both an investigation into
recent serial killings in
Yeah.
the area. So I guess it starts off with the killing of a young boy.
There is definitely callbacks in the beginning of the movie to the events of the original. Like, it kind of just immediately is like, you remember this movie? And I think they reshot some of like the Dare stuff and all to kind of lead you into like, oh, okay, this is definitely a sequel. They start off right with the music, which is something the second movie just really kind of missed out, was having callbacks to the first film without it being actually relevant.
Yeah.
So
just having those subtle things that are, you know, they really do make up for a lot of the dead air, I guess, in some movies.
And then this boy is killed. It's really cool because they actually do the footage, like the shot through the killer's eyes in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was like walking around and picks a victim, and then Kinderman is called next morning to take a look at the body, and the head is all, I mean, just
mangled.
Yeah. Oh man, I cannot praise the acting enough. The acting is so good in this.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because we came off of 2, but my God. But the whole thing is the guy, Detective Kinderman, he's like telling the hospital staff, hey, and this happens after a few different killings and stuff, that this is definitely the Gemini killer.
Yeah.
Like, because there's things in these cases that only he would know.
The markings on there was Gemini markings on the hands.
Cutting off the correct finger.
Correct, yeah.
That's like a whole thing with this, is that he definitely is like, this has got to be, it has to be the Gemini killer. And then you also see all these murders and one of the saddest ones is his friend who is a priest, who is so charming and so awesome.
Yeah.
And he drains the blood of this guy like into these vials, and it's just like,
oh yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, because like they wheel it in and it's just jars of his blood just sitting there.
And like, that's one of the coolest things about this is while it does happen outside of the hospital as well, you don't really feel like you're contained to a hospital in this movie, which is what's awesome, because it goes in and out of different places where like the guy's home and all this stuff. And this is going to be spoilers. I recommend you watch this movie. So if you really want to watch this movie, I just recommend pausing right here, watch the movie, come back to this, because I'm going to talk about spoilers. But essentially, like, he goes to interview this patient X. He does have a name in the movie, but they don't actually say it.
Yeah.
But essentially, it looks like it's Father Karras from the first film.
Yeah.
Like in a straitjacket and all stuff. He's essentially been possessed with the aid of Pazuzu. This serial killer who was in the electric chair has possessed Father Karras. So it's not necessarily Pazuzu. It's kind of like Pazuzu, serial killer.
Yeah.
Like,
with the guiding hand of Pazuzu, the Gemini killer kills again.
Yeah. And that's kind of the weirdest part of this movie, is trying to get a grip with, okay, wait, so it's not necessarily a demon possessing him. It's just like a really messed up person.
Yeah.
But he explains it as like, oh, Father Karras was laying there dead, and just as he was dying, Pazuzu helped, just like as he was dying, I was dying, and Pazuzu helped me find a body so I could keep...
The master helped, yes.
Yeah, so I could keep killing.
Right.
And throughout the movie, the Gemini kills like possessing people to kill in the hospital, and it's kind of weird.
Kind of weird, but it really shows like the best shot in this entire movie.
Oh,
one of the best killings in this entire movie is this great. It's kind of a long shot actually. It's this big long one take shot of this nurse in the hospital, kind of just doing her thing. She goes into a patient's room, comes back out, closes the door. The minute she closes the door, opens again. big old medical shears.
Yeah.
Right to the back of her head.
Yeah.
And it just cuts away just like that.
Yeah. And that shot is so awesome because it literally is just like a lead up. Like it's just, you spend like 2.5 minutes just on the hallway, nothing really happening, checking the rooms, blah, blah. And all of a sudden just, and like it zooms in, got like 3 seconds and it's just over.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. And the deaths in this, they don't pull any punches. Like, there's a lot of blood. It's very horrific. And it's great because they don't go too over the top with it. As far as, like, they don't show, like, tons of decapitated heads everywhere.
Right.
Or whatever. It still is like, oof. Like, just to feel the brutality of the deaths, especially with the acting. Like, it really comes through for the people like, this is absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of really good scenes. But the fact that this killer can kind of change bodies or inhabit different bodies of weak-minded people, like whether you enjoy that or not, I guess is subjective.
Yeah.
But I think when you watch the movie, it seems like it works. And it
Yeah.
sounds stupid, I guess, but it works in this context because the actors just really sell it.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole thing where the guy goes home, like the detective goes home, this dementia-ridden patient, or I think it's Alzheimer's, gets possessed and... Like, I mean, they even have a shot where she's like crawling on the ceiling,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. He goes home and like then that woman is like possessed by him and tries to kill his family. But even that, like, it sounds really outlandish. But in the context of the movie, you're just like, oh,
I know, yeah. The minute they open the door and the wife's like, what's this nurse doing here? It's immediately, I mean, your whole body just gets tense. You're like, get out of the house. Everyone get out of the house. No, please.
Yeah. It sounds as dumb somewhat as like the weird light mind-seeking thing for the second movie.
Second one, yeah.
But it almost works because it's kind of simplistic in a way. It's just like, oh, because I'm working with a demon, I can possess weak-minded people to do my bidding,
Right.
And like, that's really scary. Anyway, that's pretty frightening. But then just the way that they sell it, it just works for me.
I agree.
I mean, you could nitpick it, but...
I was so pleasantly surprised because we watched Exorcist II and then immediately after watched this one, and I was mentally exhausted from Exorcist II trying to keep up with it, and it was such a relief to have like a movie that just kind of played itself. You didn't have to like... I mean, you didn't really have to put too much attention or work into watching the movie.
Yeah.
You could really just sit back and actually thoroughly enjoy a good movie.
Yep, exactly.
That ties back to the first Exorcist, so it's super cool.
That was really the biggest amazing thing about this movie.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I do want to say about this is like, oh, it's not just because it's better than 2 that it's great. I think the fact that they had a writer direct it really helped because the dialogue, a lot of the dialogue is really witty, cynical.
Yeah, it's definitely meant for writers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it feels so natural. I mean, it really, again, it's kind of like the first one where you feel like a fly on the wall. It's just like normal, everyday conversations. I know like when... I think there's a scene where they're in some sort of diner or restaurant or something like that, and they're just kind of busting each other's chops, and it's just like that's what you would see on any given day, a regular old diner.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And it's just great that they actually figured that out. Plus, cinematography, so good in this.
I know.
Great color choices, great, like, costume designs, great...
camera angles.
I mean, yeah, just everything. It's so awesome. Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's the funny thing because 2 technically... had like more extravagant sets for the most part.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you have these big outdoor scenes.
They just didn't utilize it well.
Yeah.
And it didn't contribute to anything in the movie.
No story. If it's not a good story, then why, like, it doesn't matter how pretty it is.
Yeah.
Unless it's like really, I mean,
you can polish a turd, but it's still a turd.
Yeah. And this was like, okay, it's mostly cities and a hospital, but it's just the way it's shot and the dialogue and stuff. I thought it was great. Like, even the way that they use, like, zooms or just the stuff that's in the background. Like, they just did the sets right. It feels like it's lived in.
Yeah.
And...
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And whereas the second one felt so sterile. Like, it just is like, like...
reach into my mind, Donnie. Look at the light.
Make the tone go deeper. Yeah. So bad. But this one... I was totally shocked by it. I had this DVD for a long time, actually.
Yeah.
And I never watched it because I'd seen Exorcist II and I knew how terrible it was.
You just gave up hope on the third one.
I mean, yeah, it's a bummer because that's probably what happened with this. I mean, this movie did okay.
Yeah.
But like,
probably fell victim to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people are like, well, I didn't see 2 or I remember 2. I was, oh, it's terrible. I don't want to see 3.
Right.
You know, that's a bummer. You know, and the thing is, they could have done Legion, but it still has so much of a connection. The story is just so connected to Exorcist that it's like, you know, movie land, you have to do it. Like, books often, you know, it's pretty easy to just put a sticker on a book and most people get it with the author. Because most people follow authors. That's how most book series work. You know, there's like, but most people don't really follow directors. Most people, you know, they follow, like for movies, it's like,
it's a series.
It's Iron Man.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Iron Man 3, Iron Man Revenge, and, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and so I get why they couldn't do it. They can just say, William Blatty. You know, it's like directed by the same guy, Legion. You know, it's like, the guy who wrote the screenplay and the original story. So I get it. It's such a bummer that like the idea that this movie, which is so good, suffered because of that. Plus the ending of it. Okay, this is
kind of weird.
Okay, this is like really spoilers.
Yes.
The ending of the movie. There are, like I said, there are a lot of violent scenes in this movie. One of the craziest ones is there's this other priest who, man, I just trouble connecting him to the rest of it. But he comes in and he's trying to basically exorcise Patient X.
Yeah.
Brad Dourif of, you know, it's basically trying to get the crazy Gemini killer outside of Father Karras.
Yeah.
But he gets like hung up to the wall, and then like as he's trying to pull away from the wall, like tears his skin off.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's a crazy effect where he's literally trying to pull himself from the wall. It's just like tearing the skin off his head and his back. Ugh. But as that's going on, our main protagonist, detective, comes in and it's like, oh, what's going on here? There's this big like exorcism battle.
Yes.
Which I'm assuming was the studio because it just feels so weirdly out of place in this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of ham-fisted in like the last section of the movie, but I don't know. I gotta say, it's one of my favorite endings just because it's something I don't really see a lot of. And again, major spoilers, but Father Karras, as he's trying to fight off the Gemini killer inside him, he's like, "Shoot me, do it, shoot me now!" And instead of this like long-winded like "I can't shoot you," it's like 2 seconds. It's like, shoot me now!" Bam.
It's like super
done,
loud,
and
really
it's
dramatic.
Done. Roll credits. Done.
Yeah, it's so funny because the build up to it is like he has him pinned up against the wall, and like there's a big crack that opens up in like the jail cell thing, and there's all these people reaching up to him. It's like all the people who he couldn't save as a police officer, and then like Karras like snaps back. He's like, oh, "It's me! Like, kill me!
Shoot me!"
Literally like. It's like a half a second.
Yeah.
It's like, boom, boom, boom. It's like super loud, super violent. Like he's jerking back, and it's just so over the top.
Well, every time I watch a scene where there's something like that, where they're like, "Oh, you know, sacrifice me," and then they go into a long conversation,
I can't.
And they learn the meaning of friendship. And every time I watch this, I'm like, just shoot him. And
I know you're going to.
Yeah, and this one it was so satisfying to see it in action, like how I've always wanted to see it in my mind play out.
Well, it's so funny too because he's like, he shoots him right then. He's like, he's dying out. And he's like. I forget what the line he says, but then he's like gonna finish it. He just puts the gun to his literal head and just pulls the trigger and blows his brains out. And it's like, that's the end.
That's it.
It's like,
what?
What? That really just happened that easily? He's like, kill me. Okay. Boom. Like just.
Yeah. Why not?
It's just so insane, but it's so over the top. So just. Yeah, it's hilarious. We would start laughing.
Oh my gosh, we had a riot.
Just the timing is almost comedic.
It's great
because it's like kill me, boom, boom, boom. Like there's just no, like you're expecting it to be this whole like I can't possibly. It's just no hesitancy at all.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best part.
But yeah, it's totally awesome. One of the things that did happen with this movie, by the way, obviously I super recommend it. It's awesome.
It's
movie.
Great. Go watch it.
Just go into it with the expectation of the story's a little convoluted, but like, you know, it is what it is. You know, It's like trying to paste together like these two stories, but it works. It's just a good movie.
Yeah, agreed.
And apparently people seem to agree. Like, but William Blatty he's no longer with us anymore, but he did say that like, oh, you know, like there's all these other scenes that were supposed to be out there, and there was already stills of them that had been. You know, for the press and everything. And he said, like, oh, I think, but they thought all the footage was lost. And so there actually is a director's cut of it that was trying to be reassembled to what it originally was. Shaft Factory put it out. So you can watch the extended version, which I will. I'm going to try and track that down.
Yes. I need to see that too.
Yeah. So apparently it's just a little more of his vision. That's awesome.
That's cool.
That's why DVD and Blu-ray and stuff exist today. So we can have things like that. And
Yes.
Shout Factory, I've championed them a whole bunch of times. They make like some of the best collections of anything ever.
Yeah.
Which I'm just happy they do it because they're the only people who really pay attention to most of that stuff anymore.
That's cool.
So go watch it.
Yes.
I mean,
now.
I think
right now.
it's like, okay, the bummer is, it's like, I was trying to think about this. Could you watch it without knowing what The Exorcist is?
I think so.
I
think so.
But the problem is like in the like lead up to it, yes, absolutely the beginning, all stuff going. But when it starts getting to the involved with the Father Karras stuff and like it's so hard because that stuff is so integral to the story.
Yeah.
For an actor who was playing an actor who was in the first movie, playing the character who was in the first movie, they don't really show.
They somewhat explain some of the backstory loosely. So, yes, you could get away with watching this without watching the first one, but I think it probably would be a lot better if you did watch the first one and then almost like even immediately watch the third one would really be good. Just skip the second one.
Yeah,
go on an Exorcist marathon, just skip the second one.
Absolutely. That's absolutely what this whole podcast could be summed up as is don't watch Exorcist II.
Yes.
Just watch 1 and 3. We didn't watch 4 or 5. I think there's 5. So
yeah, there's like a prequel that was made in 2005 or something like that. That was like before Reagan ever got possessed, and it just, I don't know. Maybe it's good, but I'll have to watch it to find out.
We'll have to see.
It'll never be as good as Exorcist 3, though.
No.
No.
Well, actually, there's a show, too. I believe that there's a show. I think there's.
It's on Hulu, yeah, called The Exorcist. I don't know if it's anywhere related to the first one.
I've seen the first few episodes. I think it's like I saw this when it premiered. So
yeah, it's pretty recent.
So it's been a minute. I remember the first few episodes being pretty good. It's like modern times and somebody's getting possessed,
That's
like
pretty cool.
Which is I thought it was pretty cool because they try to do some things to subvert what you'd think would happen. I got bored of having to wait every week for it to come out.
Oh,
and
got
I was just like, I think I watched like the first 3 or 4 and then I was like,
I think it's on Hulu if I'm correct.
Well, maybe we'll pick up an Exorcist episode. We did the Psycho part 1 and part 2. By the way, that's a great episode if you listen to that. God, that's a perfect example of like super awesome movies, absolutely horrible movies.
Yeah.
And so I don't think any of that. Well, okay, no, one of them was as bad as Exorcist II, but my God, maybe someone will revisit. But anyway, this has been the Exorcist episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. Of course, if you want more GothCast, you can look it up on YouTube. We got GothCast video. That's where I post my weird YouTube videos where I talk about lots of things. And you know what else you can find there? You can find our music. Isn't that crazy?
Whoa.
I know, the Dr. Sanders Band.
Yeah.
Dr. Sanders, Dr.Sanders. You can find us on Bandcamp. Guess what? We got an album on cassette right now.
We got cassettes, we got t-shirts, we got stickers, we got buttons, we got all sorts of fun stuff.
It's all on drsanders.bandcamp.com.
Yeah.
If you want to search the album, just search Dr. Sanders on Spotify, on Apple Music, on probably a million other ones I've never even used.
You get a cassette. You get a cassette. You get a cassette.
That's right.
You all get cassettes.
That's exactly
if you go to drsanders.bandcamp.com.
That's right. So you can check all that out. It's some really surreal alternative music. That's how we do it. We hit hard. Always working on music. A lot of fun. Just a great thing. But yeah, you can also find, if you listen, some people listen to this on YouTube, so you can
That's
also,
cool.
We have essentially 2 channels. There's a podcast archive on YouTube, just GothCast podcast, find it that way. And it's just the main channel I do, like all the longer form content that I like to do. I reviewed the Addams Family. I think that's the most recent video.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of fun stuff. So go check it out. Let us know what you think, all that stuff. And of course you can, just stay in a way that makes you feel comfortable with a lifestyle that is comfortable to you, and just make sure you find happiness out there in everything that you do.
What was that?
Oh, stay spooky.
Oh, got it. Cool.